I think the narrative aspect of a pitch is something that most people miss, is the idea that you are trying to convince somebody of something, not just present information objectively. And so you go through your slides and you just look at the first one or the second one and be like, how long until this person gets really excited? Like if you had to pick, first of all, if you had to pick one slide where a VC can only see one slide and says, I want to invest, yes or no, which slide is that?
Welcome to the Inside the Fund podcast, where we go on the other side of the table and learn about capital raising from VCs. I'm Helena Fogarty. I'm a fundraising expert who helps startups raise their seed and Series A rounds. If you're a startup raising right now, there's a conversation happening about your company that you're not part of at the VC Weekly Investment Meeting. Charlie O'Donnell spent 20 years in those meetings. He made 105 investments out of Brooklyn Bridge Ventures, one of the most active early-stage funds in New York. Prior to starting Brooklyn Bridge, he invested at Union Square Ventures and First Round Capital. He's seen a lot of pitches. He's coached hundreds of founders and he's coached VCs. His book, Founder Unfriendly, What Investors Won't Tell You About Getting Funded, came out on April 28th. I help founders raise, and I've raised myself, and I'm learning something on every single page of this book. Welcome to Inside the Fund. I'm so curious to have you here. I've met you I've met you a bunch of times virtually. We've met once in person at an event, and now you're here. So this is a real treat.
Thank you.
I'm very curious about your experience. And you made 105 investments, and then you walked away for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why.
Hopefully more than a little bit. But you know what they say, you think you're out, and then they pull you back in. So I have made 3 angel investments in the last 6 months, but I don't know how serious I am about that.
Yeah.
So I was a first check investor. And I think the first place you need to start is not all venture jobs are the same.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a first check investor or you're a general partner at Insight doing Series D investing, the job is very, very different. Not only being a first check solo GP, not having a team, stage really makes a big difference. And so being a first check investor means you kind of need to be everywhere. Any 2 people in a prototype could be a thing, right? And now in a world of AI, there are a lot of prototypes out there. I mean, they may call it their product, but they're prototypes for the most part. And so I, for years and years and years, would run around and go to 10 events a week and be out after work every night and try and meet a ton of people and constantly on Twitter and social and just try and catch everything.
Yeah, I'm getting overwhelmed already.
Yeah.
Just listening
right?
to this, yeah.
And when you are 27 and have no responsibilities in the world, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, but you can fit that in.
Yeah.
I'm 46. I'm married. My wife occasionally wants to see me home. My daughter for sure wants to see me home. She's 4.5. And it's just really hard to do the job in the same way. Now, are there alternatives? Yes. Most people do one of 2 things. They either go slightly later stage. Mm-hmm. They say, okay, I'm going to narrow the aperture of things to look at. If you don't have at least $1 million of revenue or whatever the number is, hold off on talking to me. So then you just don't have to be everywhere. You can really focus. You can go, instead of networking and trying to create inbound from all of the companies, you can pick out a bunch of target pre-seed firms and say, hey, who in your portfolio is doing well, and catch things downstream. Or if you still want to be a first check investor, you build a firm. Right? You go hire a support team. You go hire the 27-year-old that I used to be to go do that. I didn't really want to do either of those things, actually. I like being Johnny on the spot to the 2 people in a PowerPoint. That's fun. The discovery part is really fun. And I didn't want to run a team. Like, I didn't want to be a manager of people. So I just sort of looked at it and said, okay, I don't really like the way I would need to do this. And so I'm not going to do it anymore if it's not going to be as enjoyable, if it's not going to be the way that I like to do this. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that I learned over time, while it was enjoyable, something that Andy Weissman actually said to me years ago when he moved from BetaWorks to Union Square Ventures. I said to Andy, I said, well, you're clearly going to do way less deals per year now because BetaWorks is very early stage. USV is sort of Series A. And he says, yeah, doing deals is fun, but I want to be like their person. Yeah, I want to ride it all the way. I want to be there for the team when things get complex. I want to experience the joys. I said, I don't know. I like doing deals, right? And then I realized over time what winds up happening is, you invest in 10 companies, 3 of them really take off. They raise a Series A, Series B. I'm off the board by then.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I still get the board decks.
Yeah.
Most of the time I don't, right? So my best performing companies, I don't experience day-to-day joy, right? Especially if it's not a consumer company, I don't see them, maybe I see them hiring, or maybe a raise, but okay, so that's not as fun. So I'm not getting fun from my winners.
Right.
Obviously, you don't get fun from the ones that die right away.
Right.
So what you wind up being stuck with when you have a mature portfolio is the companies going sideways that aren't quite making it.
Right.
Those are a slog for both me and the founder,
Yeah.
right? We're just sitting here going, okay, well, we're not losing money, but we're not growing. We're probably not going to raise another round.
Right.
What do we do with this thing? You start looking at your calendar in a mature portfolio, and it's just like, this isn't really that fun anymore. So it's just something I learned over time that I wasn't enjoying the day-to-day in the same way, even when companies were winning.
Yeah.
I just didn't get to share that, not having built a larger firm. So I said, okay, I think I want to do something else then and not this. And VC has a point at which you have to make that decision every 3 to 4 years, right? You have to decide if you're going to raise another fund.
Right.
And I actually had one of my LPs reach out to me and said, you're not raising another fund, are you? I said, I haven't announced that. He goes, no, I'm doing the math. I know how much is left in the fund.
Yeah.
You would have said something already if you were. And so, yeah, I decided not to raise a fund 4.
Okay. And how many years has it been that you?
So it's 2 years, about 2 years of not investing new deals out of the fund. But I still have a large portfolio of companies that are doing well, some going sideways, but, I still have lots of management duties on behalf of my investors.
Yeah. So how does it feel?
Feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a different relationship with work now. If I were still actively investing, I would come out of this meeting and I would immediately go check in my email because who knows what deals I might be missing.
Yeah.
Right. I just didn't also want to have that same kind of relationship with work. Whereas now, I have VC coaching clients, and I was joking around with one of my clients and I said, I don't know what you think, but I'm not thinking about you a lot in between our meetings, right? Like we do some work.
Yeah.
I give you some homework.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks from now, we're going to check in and see whether you did it and whether it worked. And so I don't need to have that same kind of cadence with work as much as I did.
It's the best thing about coaching.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's other things that I as a coach work on, but so I'm not going to make any assumptions about you, but probably, but it's just a different way of working.
Yeah. And I think for me too, the nature of work and where you add value, I think is changing a lot, right? And you hope to add value as a VC in your decision-making, sharing experience with founders, but the majority of the time is just emailing and chasing things and, stuff that I'm like, I have 100 deals sitting in my inbox. It's going to take me some time to go through.
Yeah.
It's possible that I want to do none of them. And then I spent a bunch of effort and work on something that had no outcome.
Yeah.
Right? I know I go into a coaching meeting when somebody comes out of it and says, hey, this was really helpful. That was 1 hour's worth of work and probably more than 1 hour's worth of value. And that's a really nice equation. If you could do all of your work in that way, and I think, listen, in our AI world, like that's the goal, right? That I'm spending whatever time I'm spending on work is high outcome, high leverage kind of work. And I'm not toiling around down here with no outcome.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about the book because there's so much good in there.
Thank you.
It's incredible. I like the tone of it as a New Yorker.
It's very me.
I like it very much.
Thank you.
It makes me laugh, which is wonderful. But it's also very real, and I like the way that you even talk about privilege in there. I thought that was really well handled.
Thank you.
On how this is something that, is very, is something I think about a lot where, some of the most privileged people don't even recognize that they're privileged.
Oh, sure.
And I've been there. I started
100%.
I started a company. I had the ability to start a company because I had a safety net.
Right.
And I had, other ways of paying the bills, and I had money saved up. And there are so many people in the world that can't even conceive of that.
Right.
So when we look at founders, it's a subset usually. But I love the way that you address it. I think it's really brilliant in the book. But tell me more about why you call this Founder Unfriendly.
So I can be pretty direct.
It's wonderful. I mean, as a New Yorker, it's wonderful.
You say that, right?
Yes.
And the same thing that people say about New Yorkers, what are they? That we're rude, right? And it's not that we're rude. We just have stuff to do, right? And I would argue that we're never going to waste your time with a lot of peripheral, like if you come to our store and you buy something, you check out, all of those niceties that you get in a sort of rural country store, and let's talk about the weather and the pig auction, or I don't know, whatever things go on in those places. We just respect people's time. We just assume you've got somewhere to go. Give me the money, take the thing, we're done, right? We're not friends here. And at the end of the day, you can call it transactional. I have a transactional approach to that, in that you're coming to me for something. I think the highest value thing I could give you is a check, probably.
Yeah.
If it's not a check, I should give you a definitive no, right?
Quickly,
right? Ideally, a reason why, because if I feel like I can help you by giving you a reason why, I feel like that's very valuable. And sometimes the reason why is an indication that, like, this thing's not backable. And, I said this the other day to somebody, that you wouldn't be critical of someone if you didn't care. At some level, I think, if you are going to tell someone you shouldn't be doing this, right? At some level, you're saying your time is valuable. You should spend it on something worth your time. I see a mismatch here, right? And if I don't think this startup is going to work out, I'm telling you not because it makes me feel good to say, oh, you come up with bad ideas and I have all the good ideas, right? I'm telling you because I'd love for you to be working on something great. And I don't think this is it, right? And hey, there's some broken stuff here. It's really hard for a founder who didn't just think of the idea this morning, right? If they just thought of the idea this morning and I told them that, they'd be like, I thought it was good, but I didn't really invest anything. But if you're pitching a venture capitalist, you're probably in this for at least 6 months, if not more.
Yeah.
Maybe you've quit your job already. You've probably made other time sacrifices. You've probably cashed in social capital with your network. You might have raised an angel round. You might have cashed in social capital at home. Might have said, I'm going to, instead of engaging with my family for the last 6 months, instead of being the equal partner that I should, I'm going to go deep into this thing. The idea that that's not a good use of time, or that you made a mistake by investing in that, is it's hard to deal with, especially when you got really excited about it. You told others that they should get excited about it. There's going to be a natural resistance to that. Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And so I think it's the best thing I can do. And I think it's the hardest thing to get is real feedback. I had one example of an investor of mine who's been very supportive introduced me to a founder. And he said, I'd like you to meet Matt, right? And Matt sends me his deck, and I look at it, and I was like, no, I've looked at this space before. I'm definitely not going to do this, right? And so I emailed Matt. I said, hey, Matt, nice to meet you. I respect your time, so I'm not going to take this meeting because I've looked at the space, and for reasons A, B, and C, I just don't think there's enough economics here to do something. And then the investor writes back right away. The guy that introduced us, who invested in me, says, hey, WTF, right? Like, I put some money in your fund. You should meet with my guy. And I didn't respond right away. I waited for Matt to come back, and Matt's like, thanks. You know, this investor has been introducing me around, and he's invested in a lot of people owe him favors. So I've been getting meetings. What I haven't been getting is any yeses or feedback. You are the first person I have talked to who's actually given me real feedback. Now, I disagree with everything you said, and I'm going to prove you wrong, but it's really useful to me. I totally see why you thought that you can't make money doing A, or that we're in column B, or whatever the thing was, right? I got to go back and think about how to tell this story, because I get why you think that. It sheds some light on why I've not gotten as much fundraising traction as I would have liked to. This was super useful. If I'm ever in New York, would love to catch up, I'm going to tell everybody to pitch you, because this was really valuable for me. Because I've been in a bunch of meetings where within the first 5 minutes, I realize the person has no interest in this company. And I have not been able to figure out why.
Yeah.
And he replied all back to the original, my investor. And the LP's like, don't let me tell you how to run your fund. And I was like, no, I appreciate the intro, right? But like, you pay me to go find the best stuff, and this isn't it.
Yeah.
Right? And oh, by the way, I just differentiated myself from all the other investors, gave this guy what he actually needed and helped him, right? And gotten more deal flow, right? He's literally going to tell other people to pitch me. And I did that in less time, which is my precious commodity, than had I just taken the meeting, and that would have been an hour plus, right? There are many other people in that situation that would not have taken it as well as he would have. But that actually makes me think more of him. Right? He's looking to get better. He's probably a pretty damn good founder, actually. Anybody who comes back and is like, oh, this jerk didn't even take the meeting, right? What are the chances they're going to learn? Because at some point, something's not going to go well, and they're going to need to learn from it, right? And that is speed to learning is a necessary skill to be a good founder.
In that particular case, that closed a loop with your LP. Does it matter if other founders respond to your no?
Does it matter if they respond well?
No. Just any response. Like, do you want a response? There's always a question, like, at some point, it's like, do you send the thank you note? Do you not send, like, is that email or not? Like, is that just adding to your labor?
Yeah. So the worst thing you can do is spend a lot of time combatively going back and forth with somebody who is never going to get there. Right? It is a small world, and it's not, you have to spend your time with folks that are, the investment's going to make the difference. Now, you might want to clarify a few things. Hey, actually, we're not doing with this company. I understand the feedback, but this is actually different, But at some point, you kind of have to draw a line. And I think you need to take in the feedback without being dismissive. So one of the things that I try and do is, if somebody criticizes me for something, I actually assume it's true and then see if I can convince myself out of it. that is a different mental play. So if somebody says, hey, Charlie, oh, he's cheap. Don't go to your group lunch. He's never going to, I think to myself like, I'm cheap. Okay, can I think of ways in which I haven't been cheap?
Uh-huh.
And if I can't come up with any reasons, then I might have to consider like they might very well be right. Actually, I can't come up with any counter examples of this, right? So I think too often founders are sort of dismissive. So you let the feedback sink in. There's different ways to approach it. I do think you need to keep a robust CRM that has the specifics of like, why did this person actually pass?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of the things that comes along with the book is I created a site that is sort of a toolkit that is very AI focused.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at thanks2ai.thisisgoingtobebig.com.
Uh-huh.
And if you're a book buyer, you can unlock the AI fundraising coach with the receipt. But there's also a bunch of like,
That's so cool.
it is a very fun project to work on. There's also a bunch of free Claude prompts and things to do. But one of the things in that package that I suggest is, now that we are transcribing and recording everything, to go through your pitch meetings and actually just take the transcript and say, why did they tell me they passed?
Mm-hmm.
Or I tried to prove X, did it land?
Yeah.
And not when the person who's already invested say, hey, what did those people think?
Mm-hmm.
And you just tell yourself the story of, yeah, they were really excited. Were they? Feed it through Claude.
Right.
And say, hey, Claude, were there indications of excitement from the other team? Like what's from the other team? From the VCs?
Yeah.
Right. How much time did they spend engaging on my points? How much time did they spend negating what I had said?
Mm-hmm.
Or did they just let me talk the whole time? Like, what was the engagement score on this?
Yeah.
They just let me go, right? And that's a way that you can objectively figure out like what actually happened in the meeting. And then from that, it would sort of point you to how you should engage after.
Yeah. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that you had come up with, I don't know if it's a Charlie twin or, some kind of interactor, but which is really exciting. But I didn't know that there's a whole
site. And, it partially comes out of the timing, the very unique timing of writing the book and releasing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the book from February until, let's call it August of last year. Now, February of 2025, AI was not so deeply embedded in all our workflows the way it is now.
It's changed.
I mean, it's dramatically different,
yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I was using it. I would take something I wrote and I would say, I know this is roughly 20% too long. Just take as many words out of it without changing any of my actual writing. Like, that's the extent to which it was in my workflow.
Yeah,
right.
This book is you. This book is not Claude.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. But now I feel like judging whether an investor was interested or not, that's a lesson that is going to last for 50 years.
Yeah.
But not talking about how to use these tools makes it feel like a little antiquated, right? So I was like, I got to put something together that's sort of the AI addendum to this. And I wish I had thought about it while I was reading, because then you'd be reading it and it would point to the exercise. And if we do a second edition, it'll be, more integrated. But the other thing that I did, I actually took the entire book. Well, the first thing I did is I took the entire book and uploaded it to Claude and put it in a chatbot. And Claude was like, okay, you just took up the entire context window of what I can think about all at one time. And I was like, oh, wait, actually, books are written for human readability. Mm-hmm. So there's, on the margins, words that are for you, but that Claude doesn't need. Mm-hmm. So I fed it back through Claude and I said, just take the meat out of, like, forget about the transitions and the prose and all this sort of stuff. Like, what's the meat of this thing? Mm-hmm. Claude shrunk it from 70,000 words down to 9,000 words, which I'd have to admit was a little offensive, but it is just the machine readable lessons effectively. And so then I uploaded that into a chatbot, as well as dozens and dozens of meetings that I had transcribed, where I'm actually sort of going back and
additional
forth.
things, yeah.
And so to train it on how the interaction actually goes.
Right.
I've run about 40 or 50 decks through it so far, in addition to the 3 or 4 dozen people who have engaged it. And it's been really fun to see the back and forth. And so far, it is only interested about 5% of the time.
Yeah, no, it's rough.
Which is generally like, that's the percentage. It's operating, it's tuned well, actually, right? It should be skeptical. The other day I had to train it on what is effectively outright fraud.
Oh, yeah.
I had a deck that was just cold emailed. I still get decks all the time.
Yeah.
That was off the rails, crazy town conspiracy theorist, like just saying they had built, I don't know, effectively the Star Trek tricorder, like the thing. There's no way like it can do all of the things. These people are not legit people. But it was polished and impressive sounding, right? And the bot was just like, oh, it seems like you've accomplished a real technical breakthrough here. And I was like, no. I was like, oh, you don't have like a fraud detection.
Yeah.
How do we determine whether or not this person's fraud? Oh, okay. Look up the founders. What are the types of red flags? Like, oh, okay. This founder is literally, runs a conspiracy theory media company. Like, okay, maybe this is not. Maybe nothing else should be believed after this person.
In your work, because I came across this recently. We were contacted by someone, and we had to dig significantly to find out that the founder was completely a fraud.
Yeah.
Before we engaged very much. How often has that come up for you?
Well, there's levels of fraudulence, and there's types of fraudulence.
This person had a Reddit devoted to them.
So other people had
a Reddit devoted to their original name. Original name, not their not their new name.
Yeah, I mean there's like the Anna Delvey version, right? Which is like nothing is real about this person. This person is like legitimately fraudulent, leaving a trail of hotels unpaid and all of this sort of stuff, right?
Because she failed.
Yeah.
If she had succeeded, I don't know.
But then there's the like this person. So that is rare. And by the way, just for the record, this is how long I've been a VC and how many pitches I've gotten. So I've been pitched by Anna Delvey.
Oh, wow.
I've been pitched by Billy McFarland, the Fire Festival guy, right? There's one other. There's somebody else who's a lesser known grifter who it just came up recently in the community. Her name is not widely known, but I was like, you name a grifter who's passed through New York over the last 20 years, and they've probably wound up, in my court somewhere. But there's also what happens a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Is that somebody associates themselves with something successful and takes credit for something in a way that you really have to dig into, that they were not really the key person. Things that like sleight of hand on language, like member of the founding team. Co-founder? No, member of the founding team. Oh, okay. So the first day they had an office, you were there unpacking boxes. Cool. You're not a co-founder of this, right? That is harder, right?
Yeah.
Or even just like, drove marketing for Airbnb, right? Yeah, you were the 8th marketing person to be hired on that team. I would give most of the credit to the first CMO that was there, or whoever, actually led it, or, I guess it is something to be early in brand marketing at Airbnb. That's something. I'd rather you have done that than been the 209th person to do marketing for, Hershey bars or whatever. But But that's not something you can really hang your hat on, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's like sort of degrees of fraud.
Do you feel like it's at the same level, or has it gotten easier to be misleading, let's say? I find listen, I have my lines. Like I
Yeah.
have my ethical boundaries.
Yeah.
And I see other people in the startup space blurring those lines all over the place. Whether it's companies just having logos scrolling that they don't have anything to do with.
Oh, this came out the other day, actually.
Yeah.
I found something that I wanted to use.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of venture fund logos.
Yeah.
And they had First Round on there. And I emailed Josh and I was like, is this a portfolio company? Did you guys use this? Nope, not a portfolio company. Yeah. No one here is using it as far as we can tell.
But it feels like those lines, it doesn't sit well with me, but it feels like those lines have been blurred.
It does seem easier, right? Because there are more ways to associate yourself with success, right? There's more noise, right? So there's less willingness to, there's probably never been a willingness to like call it out, right? Because everybody's sort of busy, right? So for example, like if you found somebody that had a logo that wasn't really a customer, did you post on LinkedIn, alert, Joe Smith's startup who says that he has General Motors as a customer actually does not.
I did not.
Right? So you let it go.
I posted generally.
Yeah, but you are an enabler to Joe Smith going out and pitching unsuspecting people for not. You should throw yourself on the tracks for it, right? Like we're not going to do that, right? You have stuff to do with your time. So that's sort of part of what it is.
Yeah.
But I go back to like, so the only other general partner of a venture capital firm to have ever graduated from Fordham University, as far as I have researched, is Don Valentine, the founder of Sequoia. And when I discovered this fact years ago, I reached out to him.
Yeah.
And he was very gracious. He passed away a few years ago, but he said, yeah, if you're ever in Bay Area, come look me up, whatever.
Cool.
And I did that. I made a trip out there. I had other people to meet, but so I sat down and I was like, so Fordham, right? He's like, yeah, you seem aggressively proud of this fact. So Fordham was a really long time ago for me. It was before I moved out to the West Coast. It really didn't have a major impact on my career. No, I love Fordham. It was a great school,
My
right?
dad went to Fordham.
But it was a zero in the conversation, right? Like it just didn't have any bearing, right?
Right.
I had nothing else. I literally... It's the founder of the best venture capital firm on the face of the earth, right? My one connection to the guy was that we went to the same school, and he barely even remembers it because, of course, it's literally 60 years ago for him, right? So I muddle along, and he gives me about 45 minutes, and we talked about a bunch of random stuff. At the end of the meeting, I leave. It's like, why did he meet with me? And then I realized, if you were a venture capitalist in the 60s and 70s, if anyone even knew you existed, they must have been legit.
Right.
Who would even know that Don Valentine existed other than a select few people tied to Stanford, MIT, wherever, right? This was not a household name.
Right.
Not a blogging, newsletter, podcast, and anything, right? Shark Tank, all of the stuff that makes these folks accessible, or that makes the trappings of venture capital accessible, did not exist. So Don in the 60s and 70s probably took every meeting that somebody reached out. Right? Because what was his deal flow? It wasn't 3,000 things in a year. There weren't 3,000 people trying to get his attention. There was a limited number of hardcore engineers at places where technology was built. And they were all probably legit pitches,
Right.
right? And so I think that is what has changed is the accessibility to any rando can come in and find your email address and go pitch you or whatever and say, hey, I got a thing. And I was the CIO of Toys R Us. Well, I have no idea. Like
Right.
it's all gone now.
Yeah.
It could have been maybe.
My daughter gets very excited whenever she hears Toys R Us might be coming back.
You know, Toys R Us
aging out.
exists in Canada.
Wow. Who knew?
Yeah, my family and I we have a Toys R Us selfie in Canada,
Where in Canada?
somewhere between Toronto and an hour west. There is at least one.
All right. So in the book,
Mm-hmm.
you talk about how founders are optimizing for the wrong things,
Yes.
which I agree with. They're working on the deck, the pitch. They're working on answers to hard questions. What are they missing?
So the idea that it starts there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much that happens before.
Yeah.
Ali Hamed, who is one of the best fundraisers that I've ever seen, he made a point in an interview that I did with him that was like, you start fundraising in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't realize it. The cumulative long-term relationships that you've built with over time, how you have treated people, who you have connected to, all goes into what's going on in that pitch. And, you know, this is one of the things that we talk about in the book in terms of the privilege of network and connections and all of that sort of stuff, right? It's not just that I knew someone who was able to get me the warm intro so that I could be in that pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Even just like two people who come into that meeting, the idea that those are two comparable companies when one person has 5 venture-backed friends who has run that deck through multiple people who've raised Series A before. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Right? So you're working on this deck in a silo, right? And there are other people who are working on your behalf who've been there, done that, you know, running through meetings, right?
Yeah.
I said to a founder the other day, this founder has a very ambitious project, or could have if she described it that way, and that's a whole other thing. And I said, if you're going to show up on the door, I said, this is the kind of thing that I could imagine somebody at Andreessen saying, let's go put $20 million into this thing. This is like a huge, ambitious idea.
amazing,
This could be a
right?
decacorn,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to happen just if you walk in with just your deck and like they don't know who you are and you're not like in the network kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? Because there's a lot of trust that also goes into just dropping 20 million. Nobody drops 20 million on an idea. There's a whole bunch of things that need to get de-risked. Like, you take our 20 million, who are you going to spend it on? Or do you have access to talent? Are you tapped into the best practices of how to go and do this, right? And so one of the things I suggested to the founder is like, let's go pick out 5, 10, 15, 20 people who would be the dream angel investors for this thing. It was in the medical hardware space. And I was like, is the founder of Whoop making any angel investments? Because that would be a meaningful signal.
Yeah.
That would be a huge green flag. And not just because there's this old boys club where, oh, you know, you're
loves
buddy,
Whoop.
right? But like the founder of Whoop
Yeah.
knows more than I could ever hope to forget in my life. He's forgotten more than I would ever hope to know about healthcare and hardware devices and FDA approval and all of that other stuff, right? So if he sits across the table from this founder and says, this idea, you have what it takes, like, that's a real signal. And I think too many founders are dismissive of that. You know, oh, my idea is just as good as that person's, right? But they had so-and-so in their corner. Yeah, they had so-and-so in their
makes a
corner
difference.
who knows what they're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Who has access to, you know, oh, you want to get the cost of your hardware down? I have a person, you need to go talk to her. She's just literally all she does is thinks about manufacturability of things and getting the bomb down and go sit down. And you sitting down with the person who cuts manufacturing cost at Whoop at scale is light years ahead of where you would be if you didn't have that connection.
Yeah, but I also think that, this was something I hit my head against the wall a bunch of times. Like the person who wins, who gets further along in the idea, is not necessarily the best idea.
No.
It is often the most funded idea.
Yes.
And I'm not saying
No.
But that funding allows you so much.
Right.
It allows you to mess up. It allows you to keep going. It allows you to get the best talent. There's so much there.
Right.
And
that's one of the things that people miss out on.
Yeah.
Right. Is they focus on the wrong thing. Is like, can I prove to someone that I can also get access to all that, or I am in the flow of all that?
Right.
Or am I just solely focused on this idea is the right idea?
Right.
And I think, like, first of all, it's really hard for somebody to figure out yes or no on that. They're not the target customer, right? This is the idea that recently somebody shared their idea with me, and they're a hardcore technical person, and they are just blown away with some of the security holes and how we use AI and all this sort of stuff. And they're utterly convinced that the way they've built this thing is the way that things need to get built. I'm like, I don't know. People are using a lot of AI despite all of its security holes. Like, I'm not about to argue that it doesn't matter.
Right.
But the world seems to be moving in this, like, move fast and break things direction. And that's sort of where my head is at. And so, like, I don't necessarily think that you're going to win over a VC by saying, yes, your product vision is the right one, and everyone else is going to coalesce towards your vision of building product.
Right.
Because they will eventually come to acknowledge your rightness. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah. I mean, also, it doesn't matter if you're right if no one's using it.
Right.
That is
Microsoft was never the best operating system.
True. So let's take someone who did not grow up in the network, or well networked, or in the Valley, or did not go to Stanford. They're starting from a different place. How can they? What should they be doing right now?
So this goes back to the unfriendliness, because I've had a lot of conversations with some of the things that I not only share in the book, but I regularly talked about.
Yeah.
And the biggest pushback is you're throwing this back on the founder. And my answer to that is, because first of all, the book is about fundraising, not about funding people.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then as the founder who, like, needs money that somebody else across the table has
in the short term,
right? Like, it's on you, actually. You could be pitching somebody who is biased against people that look like you and has all of these sort of things. That's the case. Do you want the money or not?
Right.
And so I basically, when I hear people say, well, I don't have access to VCs, right? I don't have the same access that other people do. My pushback is always like, well, you got to find a way to create it, actually.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I find it hard to buy the access argument when almost every investor is posting on LinkedIn, has a Substack. It literally costs you like $50 or $100 to subscribe to an enrichment platform where you can, like, yank their email address. I mean, first of all, we could all guess, like, first name at venturefund.vc or whatever, right? But if you can find their email address, right? You can see what they are talking about. The problem with cold email is not the fact that they don't know you, it's that it's generic.
Yeah.
How many times, I can't tell you how many times over the course of my career I've gotten, would love to know if any one of you or anybody on your team is interested in this. Been a solo GP since 2012. Anybody on my team? Clearly, I'm getting the same exact note that everybody. I do not have any other investors on my team. You have no idea who you're pitching.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this note. Versus, hey, I heard you on this podcast. You mentioned that you hadn't seen anybody break through in this way in this space. Actually, we've done that. And I also know from our research that we know these people in common, blah, 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 blah. Would love to get your take on it because I'm pretty sure we've done the thing. I'll answer that.
Yeah.
Because you know who you're talking to. You spent the time to make sure that like I was the right person for this pitch. That's what most people don't do.
Yeah.
Now, I will acknowledge that there are many ways in which people from certain walks of life and certain backgrounds don't feel like that's okay. That like society has told them, you're not supposed to do that. And I mean, on this book tour, I noticed that. People come at me and say, is it okay if I email you about something? I've never had a generic straight white dude come to me and say, is it okay if I email you? I mean, nobody in my inbox is asking me permission to email me ahead of time, right? But it comes from particular groups.
Yeah.
And the ability to not feel that you are out of line by emailing someone is highly correlated to your ability to like fundraise.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be emailing a bunch of people that haven't given you permission to email them.
Yeah.
And feel like you have some value. They're going to want my email. Like that's important.
Yeah. No, I think it's your point of view on this is, in my opinion, right on, because we need to operate in a system that exists right now. We can talk about systematic change and if that can happen in the future. But if you're out raising, you got to deal with the current conditions.
Right.
That's it. So figure it out.
And listen, we know that aggressive women in the corporate world are seen as pushy. Right. You need to be pushy in fundraising for venture capital. Are you not trying to? You're not trying to get promoted to associate vice president at Chase.
Right.
That's not your goal here. Your goal is to get in front of people who see 2,000 things a year and get them to focus and not do their email while you're pitching them and be like, this thing right here is the thing that's going to return your fund.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because I saw another podcast that you were on recently and you covered really how you think the first meeting should go. And it was pretty cool. It was a little bit different than what I do with my founders, and I learned a little bit. So I'd love for you to take us through it.
So this is a sales meeting, effectively. You are there selling equity in your company. Now, it might be a safe or no, but eventually it's going to convert into equity, hopefully, right? So treat it as such. You talk to any old school person who's done sales forever, and they're going to have a very structured way that a meeting is going to go from a sales perspective.
Yeah.
They're going to spend time qualifying the person. Spend a couple minutes saying, hey, so, I just want to walk through at a high level. I mean, obviously you took the meeting. I don't know, how much you looked into the deck, but I just want to be upfront about what it is that we're doing and our stage, and I just want to check in with you to make sure that this is fit. So do you mind if I spend a couple minutes doing that? And then, you tell me if it's not, because you have things to do. I got customer calls to get back to you, right? Does that sound like a good use of time? Sure. Right?
Right. You get the initial
just head nodding, right? Like now I'm open, right? Yes. Now I am mentally like, I like the way you're signing up for this meeting. I do value my time, right? So you make it past that first 5-minute point, and they are no longer in the obligatory, some LP introduced me and now I'm in this meeting. They have opted into the rest of the meeting. You ask them, you beg them to let them out, right? So no. Like, We do early stage hardware. Yes, we've done pre-product before. Cool. So all of the bullshit reasons why they're going to pass should be gone, right? Because they said that they do this kind of thing, right?
And I don't know if it's a type of person or just I'm going to blame it on New York, but like that also calms my nervous system when people get my buy it. Like they're like, this is what we're going to do. How do you feel about that?
Right.
Yeah. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Like now I know.
Right. Because if they turn around and they're just like, I prefer to have the entrepreneur go through the full thing. That just seems, okay. I guess I'll just do my meeting the normal way. But like, okay, you've given me permission to be myself in this approach. Cool. So the person says, yeah, that's what we do. All right. So everybody who's gotten excited about this thing, and the reason why we've gotten excited about it is because of A, B, and C. And those, we think that anybody who believes A, B, and C is inclined to invest, or at least get pretty darn close on it. Do you think those are the right things? Like, would you agree that if you agreed with us, A, B, and C, you'd be leaning in? Or is there something I'm missing, some concern that, is the reason that's preventing you from doing these types of things in this space? And then the person's either going to go, yeah, that's fair. If you convinced me of A, B, and C, I think I'd be leaning in. Of course, I'd have to do my due diligence, but that's, versus like what a lot of times would happen with me. I was like, actually, I'm going to derail your whole deck, right? I just want to know this one thing. Have you figured out this one thing, right? Somebody pitches a dating site and, let me tell you about the problem with dating, blah, 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 blah. Liquidity, right? That's all I care. You're building a dating site. How do you get lots and lots of people to join? How do you get over the customer acquisition thing? Because there's just not enough people in this network. It doesn't matter, right? And then they could be like, cool, I'll make that first on my list. But like, if I convinced you that we had a path to a liquid talent pool in this dating app, right? And then all these other things, you'd be, yeah, sure. If you convince me of these three things and the liquidity problem, I'd be pretty excited about this. Okay, cool. You go through, you do your spiel, and asking questions. Leave time at the end to say, hey, remember at the beginning, we said there's going to be 4 things, right? The 3 things that I came up with, the thing that you added. Let's walk through them. Do you think we're going to have enough liquidity in our dating pool? Yeah, access to these channels, that's fairly unique. You're certainly going to start off with enough. I don't know if you can keep them or not, but, I bought off on the other things. Okay, cool. So depending on how they react to each of those things, now you have some direction. Now you know if they are actually really excited, right? So if they say, yeah, that does check all the boxes. This is really interesting. Oh, there's that word, interesting. Interesting can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, interesting to me means the opposite.
Well, so for the most part, it does, right? Yeah. But, then you can turn around to them and say, you said interesting. But interesting is like a brush off word. Interesting is like, I don't know what else to say, but I don't want to completely offend you.
Right.
No, seriously. Like, I'm not interesting. I am interested. And then you push back on them. What are you interested in? Because there's 2 paths that we can go here, right? Tell me how things work in your firm, but I'm imagining that you do one of 2 things. Either you put us on the deal conveyor, the fast track. You're going to go grab somebody, build a team around it. You have 2 partners that you need to say yes, and you're a principal. You're going to grab them into this, and hopefully I can also convince them, right? Or you're going to put this on your list of things that you've seen this week.
Right.
And come Monday, the partner meeting or the team meeting, we're going to all go around the table and just at a very high cursory level say, I met this dating app. This woman and this guy who are doing this thing. And I don't know, it has something to do with shapes and colors and whatever other BS. And anybody feel like that's the thing that I should be spending on my time? No? Cool. All right. And that is a total CYA move.
Yeah.
Right? That is that 10 years from now or 8 years from now when it IPOs and everyone's like, how did we miss that dating app coming out of Brooklyn? New York-based team, right? We go look at our CRM. Why did so-and-so pass on that? Why did Charlie pass on that?
Yeah.
Oh, we had the meeting on it. I brought it up to the partner meeting.
So
no one was
problem.
interested in it. It's not my problem, right? Well, did you bring it up like everyone pounding the table like we have to do this?
Yeah.
Or did you bring it up like, I'm just going to say the name so officially everyone else passed and not me?
Yeah.
Right? Ask the person which path they're putting you on.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? And there's no world. People have the sense that there are obvious yeses and obvious nos, and everything else is in the middle. And depending on the secret handshake and the right words or whatever, you could tip people either way, right? Where you say, well, I don't want to offend them. I don't want to be too aggressive, right? Because what if they're on that fence, that very wide fence? And if I'm too aggressive about it, too pushy, I'm going to push them down. No. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
It's like there are obvious yeses.
Period.
And there's a pin of one way or the other, right? And then there's everything else, which is basically crap.
Yeah.
Right? The idea that they
Or
could have,
considered crap.
right?
Let's say that. Yeah.
That they could have gotten there had you not just aggressively asked whether they plan to champion you or just throw you on the pile of things to be passed.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that they passed? No, that's not it. It's
So
definitely
in a
not it.
meeting,
Yeah.
let's say not a partner, an associate comes in. Do they have a list? Do they go, like, they have a list of the 25 companies that they've seen that week that they've met with? Do they mention them all, or do they call out one that they like? Like, what does that look like?
Sometimes they run through them all if you haven't passed on them, right? Different firms obviously run differently, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got something that is not yet passed at the level of the person that you met, then it might come up and it might be just one line.
Yeah.
And the idea that it was discussed is doing a lot of work there. I wouldn't say it was a real discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the way the first person tells everybody else about it indicates how everybody else is going to feel about it, which is also why it's very important that ideas be shareable. If you're going to perform Inception on this team, it needs to be simple and understandable. It needs to survive the game of telephone.
Yes.
And so if I muddle through the description, let's say I am genuinely excited about it.
Yeah.
But my description of it to the rest of the team is overly complex and it's doing a thing and there's a laser and satellites and, whatever, right? That's not going to survive the partner meeting either because no one even understands it.
Yeah.
They can't get excited about something they don't understand. So it needs to be very simple.
Right.
And so like the other day I was talking to a company and I was really straining for like, what is it that you do? Like, what is the secret sauce? So you have all these meetings with potential customers and you've created this algorithm that's going to predict like which things they're going to like. And do you survey them? Do you sit down in a meeting? Do you just record it, transcribe it? Like what? And the person constantly was like, oh, it's far more complicated than that. Okay, well, try me. I need to understand it. I need to understand it. I need to describe that, I need a very simple way of describing it to somebody. And if I don't have that, then the whole thing is dead.
Right. And so many people can't do that.
No, because they're so hell-bent on this is so much better than everything else. I've put so much work into this. And actually, the best work that anyone has ever done is in simplifying things.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it just works.
Yeah.
Or just, oh, we spent a whole lot of time that unlocked an insight that actually made this way more simple to figure out. Like, that's really the nature of insights. And, it's not to make things more complicated.
Yeah.
It's to make them easier. Right? To go back to the dating analogy, right? Is that what did Tinder do? Tinder just basically took the position that nobody knows anything about themselves and everybody should just go on vibes, right? And like, you could overly complexify what is actually happening there.
Yeah.
But like, that is an easily shareable breakthrough. To say all the other apps ask you a million questions, ask you to post a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Nobody knows shit about themselves. Just go on vibes. Huh. Okay, that's different. Like, maybe I might take that meeting just because it's different, right? But yeah, somebody else could say, well, why couldn't somebody else do that? Well, that's not the way everybody's thinking.
Right.
And we're going to be the first to that, and we're going to be the best at it.
Yeah. So how do you think that founders can prepare for the telephone game if they get even mentioned in a meeting? I've seen some people create their own investment memo that they can send afterwards, but really, what should they be preparing the associate who is somewhat interested or maybe really interested in it?
So I think doing listening is really important, right? So, for example, like ages ago, I had tried my hand at a startup company. I wasn't any good at it, but I was interested in helping people figure out what to do with their careers. And so when I'm just in casual conversation with people, I would say, we're building an app that helps them figure out what to do with their career, helps them figure out what they want to be when they grow up. And I would just leave it. And I would create the space for somebody to tell me what they thought it was and where their head was at immediately. And the number one thing they said was like, oh, you mean like personality tests, right? And then I kind of went back to our team and I was like, oh, you know how we were going to push off the personality test thing? No, it needs to be part of the first project because that's everyone's expectation of what we're doing. That's where their head is at, right? And so like understand where the person is coming from in that before they even, kind of go forward. And I think you want to ask as many questions as you are giving statements, right? You just can't point the fire hose at someone and say, let me tell you everything about what we're doing, and then be done. Versus like the back and forth of just actually having a conversation with somebody, I think is really, really important, and making sure that you understand what they know or what they don't know, or, what the issues are, or all of that kind of stuff. The other thing I would say is to go back to like the things that founders are missing. This pitch doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like, oh, I'm in fundraising mode and I had this idea that I thought of in my basement and now I just go pitch a VC. You should have your whole day stacked back to back to back with meetings of people for whom they could be any number of things, right? They run some big company and they could be a customer. Their company has gotten very big because it was a venture-backed company, and so they could be an introduction to investors. They are also an occasional angel investor, right? And so you're thinking, I'm just in fundraising mode. But if you are actually like, listen, if I'm doing an ad tech company in New York, I'm going to find my way to any one of the ad tech mafia people, right? I'm going to find a way to sit down with Brian O'Kelly and Ari Paparo and the Walrats and, like all of the Goodharts and everybody who's like in that space. And some of them are actively running companies. Some of them are just investing right now. Some of them just have lots of battle scars from the space. And so, it's really important to make sure that you're talking to everyone, because the other thing too is, who do you think that principal at that firm is going to talk to?
Right.
They're going to be like, oh, I don't know, that person seemed kind of compelling.
I call Ari up. Yeah.
I'm going to call Ari up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's who their due diligence person
Yeah.
is. And the best reference that Ari could be on this is, oh yeah, I already talked to him. It's super exciting. I think we're going to make a small angel investment in it.
Yeah.
Now you are inclined to be positive about this. You've outflanked the investor.
Yeah.
Right?
How would you suggest structuring those conversations? Like if you're reaching out to someone
Yes.
in the ad mafia because
Yes.
you're in the ad world,
Yeah.
and they could be an angel investor.
Yeah. Why do they
could
have
be
to be
customer.
structured?
They could be, I don't know, because
What is
I'm
this meeting?
socially awkward.
What is this meeting for? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And I don't want to waste people's time. So it's like, yeah, so what is this meeting for?
I just literally had this conversation with my wife, because she did a major pivot into being a software developer.
Mm-hmm.
She started off her professional career as a fashion designer and helped launch 2 brands. And now she's an amazing full stack software developer. And she sort of has, like, especially because I'm out there and social media and all of this sort of stuff, she feels like, I should probably do some of that too. I should build my network of other software engineers, but I never know what to write. And I said to her, I was like, well, I just write based on interesting conversations that I have.
Mm.
So you should just increase the number of like interesting conversations that you have about software development. And just think about everyone that you've met so far and who was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you like talking to?
Yes, that's a key thing.
Right.
That's what I tell my phone.
Right.
Like, you don't have to talk to anybody you don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, go pick out 5 people you really enjoy having a conversation with and just go talk to them. And you know what? You could even record the conversation and just be like, do you mind if I record this? Because I'm often inspired by conversations with people like you, and I want to share them in some way, and I always kind of forget.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, well, what do I tell them that I want to? I was like, you just want to catch up. Like, you just, hey, what do you do? Do you want to grab coffee? Right. First of all, I think everyone who pre-asks what the structure of that, it's not like you've already emailed the 5 people and they're all coming back to you with like, what the hell are you asking me for coffee for, right? Like, what's the agenda? I need a clear aspect of like, no one's saying that, right? Just try it. See if it works out, right? If they're not responding to you, it's probably because their inbox is unmanageable, not because they, again, they're probably going to go on vibes. If you seemed likable and into the kind of things that they enjoy, right, then they'll be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll catch up with you. Cool.
Yeah.
How's it going? Cool. How's your kid? How's work going? Okay, now you get into it. And
if they don't, you've emailed 5.
it's
That's
fine.
why
You
you
have
email
backups.
5.
Yeah.
Because if I email one person and they come back with a weird answer, I'm going to obsess about that for 3 years.
Right.
If I email 5 and one person comes back and says, yep, let's get coffee tomorrow, awesome. Someone comes back weird, okay. And then someone else comes back and says, hey, I'm going through a divorce. I don't want to talk right now. Okay, then it's all okay.
Right.
That's why we have redundancy.
Right. And also,
Yeah.
you can share things,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be the intent of the meeting.
Yeah.
It can just be, I've actually have a lot of friends that are going through divorces, and I had a really interesting conversation with somebody who's actually using Claude to help manage their divorce process, and it was really fascinating to me. And I am just, I have been talking to people who have been through a lot of life complication and curious about where AI can help and where it can't. And if you emailed a bunch of people who've had some stuff going on, they'll be like,
Which, By
I
the
know
way,
why you're reaching
anyone-
out. Right,
anyone
which is
at a certain
everyone.
point has had
right,
a lot of stuff.
right.
Yeah.
But there will be no illusion as to why they're being reached out to.
Yeah.
You'll be like, oh, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that, right? But it doesn't have to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, I actually kicked the tires on an idea in the elder care sort of space. And I went through all sorts of stuff with my dad and mom and medical things. And, I knew a couple people that like sort of went through somewhat similar stuff. And I didn't say, I'm having this meeting specifically because I think I might build a company in this space and I will be using the learnings from this meeting and you'll need to sign an NDA. No, it's just that, hey, we've been going through some stuff.
Yeah.
And we've seen each other's lives cross on Instagram, and 9 times out of 10, the person's response is, yeah, I'm so glad to hear from you. I've been thinking about you because we went through the same, let's sit down and talk. That's how most of those meetings go.
Absolutely. I love your community trust score. I think it's super important. So you have a community trust score. I think in the book the visuals.
It's like 5 to 11.
5 to 11.
Yeah. Because if you're under 5, it's a problem.
But I love it because you need to, in some case, it just talks about relationship building. And there's so many ways that people can do this. Even if you grew up in Elkhart, Indiana, like me, even if,
What's the population?
It was 60,000. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is now. It's a small city.
Right.
It's not a podunk. There were places nearby.
It's got traffic lights, but it doesn't
There
have.
was one place nearby that we had, a 4-way stop. That was not our town. Our town was bigger than that. But it's, I like the trust score because it says so much. And it's about building relationships. So as an introvert, how can you go from a 5 tolerated to, let's say, an 8?
Well, so let's talk about like introversion and extroversion, first of all. As I understand it, and you tell me otherwise,
I'm not an expert.
that it's a lot more about energy drain versus willingness,
That's why I see it.
right?
Yeah.
So it is not that you're afraid to talk to somebody. It's just that talking to somebody in certain situations or being social in certain situations like drains the battery.
Yeah.
Right? And so, first of all, I actually think that extroverts are often worse networkers because they are like unfocused in their networking. And I actually feel like I had this issue in that I love talking to people, right? And I'll go do some venture panel and I'm always the last one out, right? I'm the VC who's like, look, we're in front of the building. It's 9:30, right? I gotta go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, can I just walk you to the fine, right? I aiming to be out
get
at
escorted to the subway?
8:15.
Wow.
I had someone take the subway into Brooklyn, despite the fact that they lived on the Upper East Side. And they genuinely were like asking questions, and it was a conversation about something I knew. It wasn't like creepy stalkerish. And at some point I said to the guy, oh, so where are you headed? What neighborhood do you live in? He goes, oh, Upper East Side. I was like, oh, dude, we're going the wrong way. He goes, no. I know. But I could have either spent this half hour, 45 minutes getting this back and forth, which you're busy, this is hard to come by, or just sitting at home watching, The West Wing or whatever.
And you were
right?
willing. You were willing to participate.
Yeah. I just like he said, do you mind if I, do you mind if I continue the conversation? I said, no, this is fine. No, he was good about it. But as an extrovert, you can be like, oh, this is an infinite well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go talk to anybody, right? And I do think you do need to focus, that there are some conversations that are going to be more valuable than others. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where a lot of founders get this wrong, is that, you go do a fintech security whatever thing, right? And you go talk to your friend who's VP at a bank.
Yeah.
Actually, the person you need to talk to is like the CIO at Citibank. And the CIO at Citibank is going to have a lot more knowledge and input as to whether or not your thing is a thing than your friend who works in back office IT at, whatever community bank. And you have to be discerning about that, right? And I think people should be discerning about like what conversations are going to be more worth my time than others. And I see that as a VC all the time. People say, hey, can I just grab 20 minutes or can I show you my thing? And I always push back and be like, what could I tell you specifically?
Yeah.
And I was sort of poking at this guy the other day. And I said, you've got 7 trial customers for this. Yes. You've decided that this is a focus. Yes. What do you want me to tell you? That this is a good idea? Do you already think this is a good idea? Yes. If I said it wasn't a good idea, would you think I was wrong? Yes. It's like, so why are you asking me what I think?
Right.
You should be telling me what I should think, right? And so if you're an introvert and the mass conversations are draining, you just structure your time in a focused group, a small focused group of other people who have high trust within the network, right? You could create a podcast where this might be
this is my networking.
Right. This might be your entire store of energy for networking with people for the next 2 weeks, right? And
next 20 minutes, but after that, then
right. But and let's say it takes you 2 weeks to recover.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, you still are getting out there way more than somebody who doesn't have the biweekly recording schedule for their podcast, right? Somebody who's not as visible as you are, right? So it doesn't. What you don't have to do is go to the rooftop networking event and go talk to 100 people or all of this sort of stuff and think that that's the way you're going to get known in the community.
Yeah. And that can be, I think that can be an element, right? Like if you really don't know anybody, that can be the first step and challenging yourself to talk to 3 people.
I mean, I think it's useful. You're going to have to do sales.
There are some things that you can do, but leaning into things that feel like it sources you or gives you what you need.
Right. And there's and being able to network map, I think, is really important. And just say like, who do I really need to know?
Yeah.
Right? Who I'm going to go pitch somebody. Who do they assume I know if I'm going to be successful in this? And that's key.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I love that. We had a whole thing planned where we're going to go through some slides, but I think
blow through the
we're
time?
out of time. I'd love for you to say like, if there's something that our audience of founders, early stage founders, let's say pre-seed and seed, should know from you, what would you say to this?
That I wrote a really great book that they should buy?
I was going to say that. No, I was going to give that, but it's something else.
I think the narrative aspect of a pitch, I think, is something that most people miss, is the idea that you are trying to convince somebody of something, not just present information objectively. And so you go through your slides and you just look at the first one or the second one and be like, how long until this person gets really excited? Like if you had to pick, first of all, if you had to pick one slide where a VC can only see one slide and says, I want to invest, yes or no, which slide is that? Right? Could be a team slide. Could be a traction slide. Could be the market.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so that's the first one. That's the hook, right? Does every slide after that keep the momentum up? And if this was a very simple algorithm that said, based on this slide, could this thing return my fund or not? Yes or no? Swipe left, swipe right.
Right.
Is this slide doing the job?
Right.
And I think most people would find that the real excitement slide comes too late,
Mhm.
and that there's a lot of slides in there that aren't screaming, you could return your fund from this.
Yeah.
It's like product description and, story, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
but nothing that's like, oh my God, this is a fund returner. Oh my God, this is a fund returner.
So how do you cover the other stuff in there? So, like, let's take, I'm working
Just
with,
talking to the person.
yeah, because I'm working with a company right now, and they have the same team as they just sold their last company for $90 million to an NYSE
That's great.
company. I think that should be the
Yeah.
first slide. Then they've got traction.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm taking a meeting.
Yeah.
Every VC is taking a meeting with somebody that had a $90 million exit, just period.
Right. And this is the second time they're going to have a bigger exit this time. And then I think the traction. And then, but where do we get to the go-to-market, which is like, not as exciting.
The idea, so I look at that in terms of like people feel like there is a structure to every deck, and every deck must have the competition. I do this all the time with competition slides. And I'm like, why is there a competition slide? And everyone who helps people at DAX or teaches this or whatever is like, what do you mean? You have to have you don't have to have a competition slide.
Right.
Because in an ideal world, you are pitching someone who believes this problem is not solved.
Uh-huh.
And you said, I'm building little red wagons. And if you said, I'm building little red wagons, and the VC took the meeting, and it didn't come because one of their LPs forced them into the meeting, right? That VC is open to the idea that there is a better little red wagon to be built.
Okay.
And everyone else who's building little red wagons has not totally solved it.
Yeah.
So why are you going to waste the time in the meeting describing why yours is better and talk about the 6 companies? Because what's most likely going to happen is they were open to the fact that there could be a better one.
Right.
They knew peripherally, they'd seen a few, and they were like, that's not it. But now you're going to name 3 more that they didn't know about, right? And they're just, I guess there are more people trying to make little red wagons than I thought, right? None of that is contributing to the time that that makes the person feel like they can return the fund.
Yeah.
You're sort of getting into the weeds. What you really need to understand is like, can you convince someone that you are well positioned in the wagon market to see what's going on and that you have done your homework on this space?
Yeah.
Can you say things like, everyone messes up in this way. They're making them out of metal when they really should be made out of wood. Wood? Why wood? Well, here's all of this sort of stuff, right? Holy shit, you know a lot about wagons. Like, I feel like you have gone in eyes wide open. Your homework indicates that you are an expert in the space. Once you establish that you are, in fact, the expert in space, they're more inclined to trust that you are making the key calls here, as opposed to describing like, you'll go to market, right? Like, how does anybody go to market? Right? I mean, there's a bunch of, there's only X number of channels, right? Some channels, depending on the market, are more expensive or otherwise, right? Like, I'd so much rather have a conversation with like, I feel like people have built really good products in this space, but it is hard to get a farmer off the field and back into the office to make time for, this, right?
Yeah.
How do you get over that, right? What I'm really asking for is like, are you prepared to go after the challenge here? You don't need a description of like, well, we're going to hit up conferences, and well, we're going to get like, that's what you're going to do. Like, that's nothing like, actually we launched a satellite that's a mind control ray, and there's oh my God, that's the first time I've ever heard about that in a meeting. What a genuinely great way to do go to market. Like,
That's amazing.
you're literally going to brainwash all of your customers with your satellite. How much did it cost to, that's the nice thing about, low orbit satellites. You can launch one for $50,000 and this, that's never going to happen in a meeting. Everyone's doing roughly the same, generic stuff, right? And if you're first of all, if you're enmeshed in that kind of conversation, you're probably already at the pass stage. You're just kind of going through the motions, right? Because when somebody's really psyched about it, they're psyched about some aspect of this thing where you're punching above your weight, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna give you $5 million, and yes, go to market's hard, but there's 3 or 4 people in your space who have done it really well before, and let me go give you the money to go hire those people, or all of that sort of stuff. It's a different kind of conversation. It's a conversation where you're not saying like you're assuming this train's leaving the station, and I'm running to get on, versus, so how fast can this train go once you get it going? Like, oh, it's got what kind of an engine the train has. It's clearly not leaving the station. We have time to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So everyone should pick up Founder Unfriendly.
I hope so.
Where do you want them to buy it?
I don't have a preference necessarily. No,
Okay.
wherever you buy books, I mean, your local, obviously you want to support local bookstores. Amazon will have it there tomorrow. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm personally, I'm a digital reader myself. So, whatever is convenient for them. I certainly appreciate them spending their hard-earned money on it.
It's worth it. I think it's a great book. And just an aside, I had a PDF of it, and I was having Snoop Dogg read it
to you.
Yes. So I found that was a better fit than, Old English or in Australian accent.
I'm told there's a whole other world of have audiobook. People have asked me about audiobook, and it's a world of publishing rights and all of this sort of stuff that yes, my goal is certainly to have that, and we're just not up to that.
Because I'd love to hear your voice.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it would be really good.
I, for one, will never listen to my own voice reading the book. Can't do it.
But everyone should pick up Founder Unfriendly, and I really appreciate you having me here.
Thank you.
I'm Helena Fogarty, and this was Inside the Fund.